At number 10 we have the hooded figure. Okay, so we're gonna kick off this list with a classic. I think whenever you see a hooded figure, whether it's in your sleep paralysis or when you're walking down the street, it's always terrifying. You have no idea what's under the hood. They could pull it up and reveal a disgusting face full of maggots, or it could just be some regular lady who really likes hoods at the worst time. But this encounter with the hooded being comes from Redditor Curly Bacon, and he said he would wake up in his room unable to move, and a tall entity shrouded in black would be posted up in the corner of his room. Every time he saw this thing, he could not see its face because it was covered by the classic dark cloak, but he could feel that it was looking at him, and he also felt that this thing was evil. I mean, that makes sense. If you're a good guy, you don't appear in people's rooms at night and then stare at them while they're petrified. You're too busy teaching blind kids how to read.
In our 9th spot, we have That's Them. So this is probably one of the most famous sleep recordings out there. It's been discussed on multiple different websites and tons of people have analyzed it. So basically, a woman named Jenny captured some weird stuff on her app. In the recording you can hear a bunch of clicks that sound almost like footsteps. Then you can hear her say, "What are you doing?" A ghostly voice replies with, "Nothing." Like, they say nothing. not just nothing. Then at another point you can hear the same voice say either, "Oh, be still," or "That's them." Either way, it's terrifying. Now, Jenny claims that she eventually moved from that house and everything was fine. Until one day her son started talking about seeing a dark figure with no face. She thinks that that's the spirit she talked to in her sleep and that he followed them to their new house. Coming in at number 8, we have the cries for help. So this next man doesn't give us much of a backstory, which makes the recording that much more creepier. So he posted his recording online and you can clearly hear him begging for help in his sleep. In between whimpers you can hear him saying, "Help me, help, help," over and over again. I mean, it could just be that he was trapped in a nightmare, but still, it's terrifying. In our 7th spot we have the intruder. This next woman captured one of her biggest fears on the app. So let me give you a brief backstory. This woman lives alone in a small studio apartment. She kept waking up in the middle of the night for unknown reasons, so she decided to record herself sleeping. In the recording you can hear the latch on the main door unhook itself, the doorknob turning from side to side, and then you can hear the door open and faint footsteps. When she woke up, the door was locked and nothing was touched in her house. So that rules out the possibility of a robber. It's still very terrifying to think that someone may have gotten into her apartment while she was sleeping. What's odd is that the recording never picked up the door being relocked. She heard it unlock, but in the morning the door was locked, meaning at some point it had to get locked again. Like, what's going on there? Who's creeping into her apartment during the night? Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the heavy breathing. Posted on Reddit by CLM Barn, he decided to use a sleep app to track his snoring patterns for his doctor, but he managed to capture way more than just his snoring. The recording starts off with the guy letting out a big gasp. It's followed by sounds of static, bangs, clangs, footsteps, and shuffling. At one point you can hear the guy faintly snoring, but then you can hear some weird growls or something like that in the background. It honestly sounds like someone is shuffling around his apartment while he's sleeping. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the shadow. Reddit user Worcester_Street originally downloaded a sleep app in order to keep track of his sleeping patterns, but that's when they discovered weird stuff was happening in their sleep. Every night at exactly 2:33 a.m. the sleep app would pick up some weird noises. The first thing it picked up was sounds of wet sucking. That's how he described it, okay? Not my words. They also heard heavy breathing noises. The scariest thing was one night they decided to stay up until 2:33 a.m. to see what was happening. At that time he was walking through his hallway to his kitchen when he saw a black figure in his laundry room, and he managed to get a photo of it. And it's really creepy. Whether it's fake or not, that thing gives me the creeps. Coming in at number 4, we have the foreign language. So it all started with this man's neighbors telling him that they would hear loud voices coming from his apartment in the middle of the night, usually around 3 a.m. or so. That's why he decided to download a sleep recording app, and by doing so, he discovered that he was talking in his sleep. The freaky thing? He was speaking fluently in another language. The problem being, he only knows English. Now, I listened to this recording and it sounds like he's speaking in parcel tongue from Harry Potter, honestly. Like sometimes he's just making weird noises, but other times he's like talking in a creepy low whisper. At one point he starts groaning loudly in pain, and in another recording it sounds like he's having a conversation with someone. It may not be anything paranormal, but it sure sounds like it. Moving on to number 3, we have the chant. So this same man managed to get another recording of himself talking in his sleep. This time, it's almost as if he's aware something is in the room with him. All you hear is him say, "What are ya?" And he asks this twice. Then he says something in another language again. And then you can hear someone say what sounds like, "All together, all together." It's very creepy. And his voice doesn't even sound normal, like it's got a low rasp to it. In our second spot, we have the conversation. A girl named Karen Melissa Minogue posted her story on Reddit about using a sleep app. She was very freaked out about what she captured and was seeking advice. So she speaks Spanish, and in the recording you can clearly hear her say, "Hola." And then you can hear a deep, ghostly, monotone voice reply with, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" She then replied back to it. This recording was from 6 a.m. She ended up isolating the man's voice and amplifying it to sound louder and more clear. And it's frickin' creepy. It's definitely not a human talking back to her, that's all I have to say. She's having a conversation with a demon. And in our number 1 spot, we have the growl. So a Chicago family was experiencing some weird paranormal activity around their house. They would hear scratching sounds, footsteps, and knocking coming from around their house. They even sometimes would wake up in the middle of the night to a shadowy figure in their room. Alvia G, who posted this story, wrote, and I quote, "A lot of the time when you go up the stairs, you feel something following you and getting really close to your ankles." So one night they decided to use the sleep app. And that's when they caught something quite strange. So you can hear someone snoring, and then all of a sudden you hear a very loud scream or growl. What's weird is how no one woke up. Like, that was a loud growl. If I was sleeping and I heard that, I would have shot out of bed. But it's weird that they all stayed fast asleep. Wonder what the noise is. Or who made it.
Starting us off in at number 10 with the 201-hour sleep deprivation experiment. Back in 1959, a radio DJ wanted to perform a publicity stunt for a charity event. He decided to stay awake for 200 hours, and he broadcasted the entire thing on his radio show. He was monitored by scientists who monitored his vitals because he needed to take a lot of stimulants to stay awake. He sat in a booth in Times Square where people could pledge money, but his innocent experiment quickly turned dangerous. After being awake for several hours, he wasn't able to do simple math problems, recite the alphabet, and he began to hallucinate.
Mean body temperature progressively declined over this period of time, and the lower it went, the crazier he got.
He thought the scientists were conspiring to kill him, so he literally drove himself mad. He stayed awake for 201 hours, but he was drugged for the majority of the event.
After staying awake for 201 hours, Tripp finally went to bed and slept for 24.
Some people say that his experiment affected him permanently, and soon afterwards he lost his job and his wife divorced him.
At number 9, we have red eyes. Alright guys, this one comes from Reddit user Black Feathers. Now he says that this happened to him while he was living in his dead grandfather's home. One day, he went to take a nice little afternoon cat nap with some music on, and before he knew it, he was stuck in sleep paralysis, and the music started to twist into crying voices. Then the closet he was facing started to open up, and what was in it? Well, a new Equinox home gym complete with workout gear. Just kidding, it was a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, and it started to whisper the word hell. He then woke up and ran out of his house. At number 8, we have the Gremlin. We have another one from the Reddit user Curly Bacon. I feel so sorry for this dude. Like, I love sleeping. It's one of my top 5 favorite things. It's up there with like eating, YouTube fight videos, memes, and when dogs have their ears flipped on the inside out. Oh, it's so cute. I love it so much. But when Curly Bacon over here falls asleep, he's like, wow, I wonder which one of my sleep paralysis demons is going to come visit me tonight. I'm so popular. And the Gremlin sounds horrible. He says he will see this thing in the corner of his rooms, and it'll even sometimes be on the ceiling. Oh great, it's athletic. And it will always be whispering to itself in some weird language. On the most uncomfortable occasion, he said that he woke up in sleep paralysis, and the Gremlin crawled over to his back and then stuck its long snake-like tongue into his ear. A demonic wet willy. Ugh. At number 7 we have black creatures. Dark floating creatures, things wearing black hoods, ghostly black creatures. I think there's definitely a theme here. I wonder if you just got a nice little nightlight to brighten up your room, then all your sleep paralysis problems would go away. Like the figures would just look way more cheerful. It would either be that or they would actually see their demonic faces and would be 10 times more terrifying. Well, this guy would have encounters with a black creature in his room, and he said it would shapeshift. It would sometimes take the form of people he knew. He felt like it was in a way to trick him. Once he said it took the form of his brother on the other side of his door and was trying to ask him for help. He knew it wasn't his actual brother because his brother didn't live with him. Ha, you gotta get a little smarter, demon. At number 6 we have the cuddler. Now, even though I've given this one a nice cute name, it's not the kind of cuddling you want. This one was written by Reddit user Bumpstart Broomstick, and he talked about when he would get sleep paralysis, he would be visited by a figure that he couldn't see, but he could feel it climb into bed with him and then start cuddling him. This thing felt like it had bony arms of a skeleton and would get so close to him that he could feel it breathing on his neck. I bet if you changed those bony arms for nice squishy skin covered ones, then this wouldn't be that bad. I could use a surprise cuddle every now and again. But the worst part is that when this bony creature leaned in close to him and he could feel it breathing on him, it whispered, "Not yet. You're not ready yet." What the hell does that even mean? At number 5 we have Justin Bieber. Why not? Why not? Put Justin Bieber on the list. Oh, what? We got Justin Bieber sneaking into your room in a sleep state and ruining your life. I'm pretty sure you could sue him for that and make a killing. Well, this was written by a huge Justin Bieber fan named D. Jansma. When she was a young girl around the age of 12, she had a big old Justin Bieber poster in her room. She would go to sleep facing the poster, so it would be the last thing she saw when she fell asleep and the first thing she saw in the morning. Yo, I think this girl needs to chill a little bit. You can take things too far. I understand being a fan, but you're kind of turning into a psycho. Well, one night this backfired on her because she woke up in sleep paralysis. Instead of seeing her beautiful Bieber, she saw a decomposing man in the poster staring back at her. Once she woke up for real, she quickly took the poster down and it never happened again. You sound like a fake fan. At number 4 we have Chomp Chomp. Swinging in at the number 4 spot we have a story from one of my favorite Reddit user names, Lebowski Achiever 12. The dude abides. He said he wouldn't get sleep paralysis often, but when he would, he saw this black figure walk into his room and stand over it. It would then bend down so close it was about 6 inches away from his face, and then it moved over to his ribs and it would start biting down on his ribs. He described this as extremely painful, but he couldn't move. Eventually, he would let out a massive scream and the figure would explode into a black cloud. So that's how you kill these things, you just yell at them. I thought the only thing you could destroy with yelling was a marriage where people were bad at communicating. At number 3 we have Take You Away. So what do these sleep paralysis demons want? Well, in the case of Reddit user Jellybean Skittle, fun name for a terrifying story, it seems they wanted to take her away. She suffered from a head injury, and after that her sleep paralysis worsened. She would wake up and be unable to move but feel a presence of something in the room with her. She would then feel as something was trying to drag her off her bed and then towards the mirror in her room. Maybe this creature wanted to take her to some sort of other world through the mirror. At number 2 we have multiple dark beings. In this one we have not 1, not 2, but 4, 5, or even sometimes 6 demons floating around a room. It's a nice little demonic party. Such a great time. And these guys mean business. The person who wrote this story said they would have to scream themselves awake. That would be terrible to sleep beside. These demons would even get super close and whisper nursery rhymes in her ear. At least if it's coming from a demon, you know it's probably an original. I don't think dark floaty figures were raised on Hush Little Baby. And on one occasion, the demons started stabbing her in the stomach. These guys have no chill. After this, she woke up with a ruthless pain in her abdomen. She obviously was terrified, so she went straight to the hospital. It turns out her appendix exploded. This is super creepy. Did the demons cause this to happen to her? Or was it the more logical answer that her appendix was exploding anyways and the hallucinations made it seem like the demons were doing it to her? Really? I don't know. At number 1 we have the Masked Man. 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 Alright, topping off this list, we have some stuff that will make you want to wet your pajamas tonight when you're sleeping alone with all the lights on in your home. This comes from Redditor Hoobshanker, who wrote that one night in an awful case of sleep paralysis, a masked figure with long demonic nails walked into his room carrying a sack. The figure opened up the sack and proceeded to pull out each one of this Redditor's loved ones and then slit their throats one by one with his long demonic nails. He then walked to the edge of his bed and started to stroke his head with the blood-covered claws until he woke up.
Starting off this countdown, we have Wake Up. So first, let me quickly describe how these sleep apps work. Basically, you leave it on for the whole night and it records any significant noises. The next morning, you'll be able to listen to all the sounds that it detected. A lot of times, the app has picked up some weird, ghostly voices and sounds. This is what happened to the Reddit user VLT1F14. 1 year ago, she decided to record herself while sleeping because her partner said that she would talk in her sleep, and she obviously wanted to hear it for herself. While listening to the recording, she found a very weird one from 4:30 a.m. During this time, she could hear a deep voice saying, "Wake up." Just before that, you can hear weird crackling noises, kind of like squeaks from the hardwood floors as if someone was walking closer and closer to her. They also said that the house is still fairly new to them, so who knows what went down there before they moved in.
A controversial reality TV show is at number 9. Okay, don't worry, I'm not talking about Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I haven't been keeping up with them. In 2004, a British reality TV show called Shattered was aired for millions of people to watch. Basically, there's 10 contestants that signed up to be locked up in an abandoned shopping center for 7 days, but they had to stay awake and compete in challenges throughout the show. Sounds like my worst nightmare, or it kind of reminds me of the movie Dawn of the Dead, but without zombies. Claire Southern eventually won this horrible contest, and she actually managed to stay awake for 178 hours. She was awarded with £97,000, which in Canada, that's a lot of money. That might be worth it for me. But she was mentally and physically tortured. I don't know if I can deal with that part of it. A show like Shattered would not stand a chance being aired today. A lot of people complain about the show because it is highly unethical and demoralizing. With that being said, let's watch a clip.
It's very difficult. This is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life.
The time of greatest struggle for our participants is between 1 and 3 a.m, when your mind automatically attempts to prepare your body for sleep. It's the perfect time for the nightly You Snooze, You Lose challenge, when one person must face a task deliberately designed to push them towards the land of Nod. So far, only one person has cracked.
Number 8 brings us to exploding head syndrome. Yeah, this is actually a real thing, but it's not actually what you think. Exploding head syndrome is a type of parasomnia. People with this condition have a hallucination of a really loud noise while they're falling asleep or when they're waking up. Even though exploding head syndrome isn't dangerous, it can be extremely frustrating. It would terrify me, and people who are affected by this, they might develop a fear of sleeping or an anxiety disorder. Up next, number 7 is sleep deprived puppies. This next sleep experiment will leave you guys with nightmares. A Russian physician and scientists performed a sleep deprivation experiment on a bunch of puppies back in 1894 to study the effects of sleep deprivation on the body. The scientists reported that after a few days, the puppies who were forced to stay awake died. She also reported that severe lesions occurred in the brain. Okay, wow, this scientist is worse than Cruella de Vil. If that wasn't enough, 2 other scientists wanted to perform a very similar experiment. They kept dogs awake by walking them, and they quickly realized that all of the dogs who were sleep deprived died after 9 to 17 days. The Russian sleep experiment takes us to number 6. We've talked about this sleep experiment many times on this channel. Well, this is a highly debated and controversial subject because some people believe that the Russian sleep experiment was just a hoax, while others believe that this is a huge government conspiracy. What do you guys think? But essentially, this was a sleep deprivation experiment that took place during World War II. Russian scientists performed a series of unethical, unmoral, and horrifying experiments on 5 political prisoners that can be compared to a modern day horror story. The prisoners were locked in a gas chamber where a form of experimental gas was pushed through the vents in order to prevent them from sleeping. It was the goal of this experiment to observe all of their behaviors and conversations through one-way mirrors to see how sleep deprivation would affect humans. The intent was to keep them awake for a period of 30 days, which is absolutely insane. Lack of sleep affects your immune system, and you know what? This takes us to number 5. Ain't that feeling when you're about about to get sick, you just know your week is going to be awful. For me, I know I'm getting sick when my allergies are just crazy. So it really surprises me that 164 healthy people signed up for a sleep study where they would be exposed to the common cold. Okay, let me explain. Scientists collected nightly sleep data from these 164 people for 1 week. They were quarantined in a hotel and given nose drops that contained the rhinovirus, which is responsible for the common cold. And then they studied how people would cope with the cold based on their sleep patterns. They discovered that people who slept for less than 5 hours a night were 4.5 times more likely to get sick than those who slept for 7 hours or more. So the moral of the story here is make sure you guys go to bed early tonight and get those 7 hours in. If you're late for school, tell your teachers you're working on your mental health. You are getting some sleep. I don't know if they can, yeah, you probably don't do that. You get in trouble. The world record for sleep deprivation takes us to number 4. Let's travel back in time to December 1963 when 2 boys came up with an idea for their science project, and their science project landed on this list. Well, they wanted to beat out the world record for staying awake for the longest. At the time, the record was held by a DJ who managed to stay up for 260 hours, or just under 11 days. I don't know who their science teacher was, but I'm pretty sure he shouldn't have approved this experiment. How stupid. I mean, it sounds dangerous to me, but they carried on with their experiment anyways, and the one boy managed to stay awake for 264 hours with no sleep. After the experiment ended, he was taken to a naval hospital where his brainwaves were studied, and they found out that even though he was technically awake, parts of his brain were napping and restoring itself. The Guinness Book of World Records stopped certifying attempts to stay up the longest because they believe it can be dangerous to people's health, which I find pretty ironic because they still let people eat glass and lay on bed of nails, and there's a lot of dangerous stuff in that book. So if you get rid of some dangerous, you should get rid of all dangerous. But maybe that's just me. Moving up this list or down this list, depending on how you see it. Next up, we're at number 3 with prison sleep deprivation. As a way to attempt to brainwash prisoners, guards would force prisoners to stay awake for long periods of time. The North Koreans used this tactic on American prisoners of war during the Korean War, and the CIA is even guilty of doing this too. Psychologists have said that false memories can occur with sleep deprivation, so that's why interrogators will keep their suspects awake so that they can hopefully create a false memory and confess to a crime. Or prisoners will just keep their prisoners awake as a form of modern day torture. Probably one of the worst ways to be tortured. Sleep paralysis comes onto this list at number 2. Sleep paralysis is when your mind is awake but your body is still asleep. So basically you feel like you're paralyzed while laying in bed, and sometimes you will see or hear things that aren't there. I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys. It's actually happened to me a few times. According to one user on Reddit, one night they woke up because they heard footsteps in their hallway. She was lying on her back, and when she tried to get up to see if someone was coming, she actually couldn't move. She started to panic, but she couldn't move or speak, but the footsteps got louder and louder. She said that she couldn't see anyone, but she knew that someone was invading her house. She could even feel him standing on the other side of the bed staring at her, and she said that she can hear him breathing, and apparently this feeling lasted for hours. Government mind control tactics tops our list in at number 1. Project MK Ultra is a code name that was given to a number of illegal experiments that were done on human subjects. These experiments were done so that scientists can identify and develop drug procedures that could be used in interrogations in order to weaken the person or force confessions through mind control. MK Ultra used a ton of different methods to alter the brain. They would often give people LSD and other chemicals, use hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and physical abuse, and other forms of torture. The scary thing is that these experiments took place in the 1950s, so it wasn't really that long ago when you think about it. I mean, my dad was born about 4 years after that.